What's up, world? Thanks for jumping in for another ride. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is critical for any automotive enthusiast, batteries. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the Optima RedTop batteries. So let's get started. So if you'll stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to share my thoughts on the pros and cons of the Optima RedTop batteries, as well as my experience. It goes all the way back to what is probably the early 90s with the Optima RedTop batteries, and most recently, the Optima RedTop battery for my 2014 Shelby GT500. So first, let me talk a little bit about my personal history with Optima RedTop batteries, and this goes all the way back to the early 90s. So we're probably talking somewhere around 1992, 1993, maybe somewhere in there. And the first one that I purchased was actually on a 1984 Chevy Blazer 4x4 project that I was working on at the time. And I honestly think that when I sold that Blazer many years down the road, that it probably still had that same original Optima RedTop that I purchased in the early 90s on it. So that was my first experience with an Optima RedTop battery, was all the way back in the early 90s. Now, just to give you an idea of that timeline and inflation for prices for the Optima batteries at that time and for several years after, I could go into a local mom and pop auto parts store that is no longer in business in our area, and I could actually go in with a $100 bill in cash, and as long as I paid cash, I could purchase a brand new Optima battery for $100. So that gives you a pretty good idea of the timeline and the price increase over the years for the Optima RedTops. Now, over those years, I've had absolutely great luck with the Optima batteries, and I don't want to say that it's all sunshine and rainbows. I have had a couple of Optima RedTop batteries fail on me. Now, I have to openly admit and take full responsibility that every RedTop Optima battery that I have ever had, and it's failed prematurely, has 100% been my fault, and I take full responsibility, and let me explain why. So for me, every early failure of an Optima RedTop battery has occurred on something with modern fuel injection. And the reason why that is, modern fuel injection, whether it's an ECM, PCM, whatever it is, has a certain amount or a very small amount of electrical draw just to keep that memory alive and keep things functioning in the background. And there are a lot of vehicles out there, especially through the 90s and early 2000s, that they would require a small amount of power drain to maintain security systems and audio systems along with that fuel injection and timing system. And so really what it comes down to is I would take the car out, drive it for a weekend, whatever it may be, come flying back in, park the car in the garage, and I may not fire the car up again for several months. And so totally on me. What I would do is I would not put it on a maintainer, just not be paying attention to it, to be honest. And when I would go out to try and start the car, the truck back up, whatever it is, it was a no-go. And so for whatever reason, my track record with any sort of recovery for Optima batteries is absolutely terrible. So once they're drained all the way down, I have had absolutely zero luck with recovery of Optimas. They're pretty much gone at that point. So 100% on me, premature failures have occurred as basically me not paying attention. And well, there's an easy solution for that. Pay attention, put on a maintainer, don't be lazy. That's just being honest. That's really why I take full responsibility. It was just me not paying attention and being lazy and not doing what I should have at the time. So live and learn. But with that, from my experience, there is no recovery for Optima batteries. Once they're drained all the way down, they are pretty much shot. And so what I've had the best luck with keeping the Optima batteries alive is the Autometer battery extender. And so this is actually a very old model. So it has the aluminum outer case. There's actually a brand new model out now. And I'm sure the circuitry and all the electronics in it is probably just much better than these old ones. I used to sell a lot of these in my shop to guys with Optima batteries because I recommended these. So I do have a lot of experience with these. And I do know that you can get like the little cheap battery tenders and stuff like that. If that works for you, then that's great. I do prefer these personally, and I have no association with any of these guys, so I have no reason to steer you in a particular direction. I do know that Optima does offer their own line of stuff now. Personally, I have absolutely zero experience with it, so I can't tell you one way or the other. The thing that I do like about the Autometer stuff is it does have a charge light and a maintain light, and I use these on everything. I've used these on AGM batteries on two of my Harleys that I used to have. I use one on our RV camper, so I use one on our 2016 Ford F-150 because normally, a lot of times after hunting season, truck sits for a little while. The thing that I absolutely like about these is it does have the charge light. So if you park this, or like the camper when I pull it in, or whatever it is, the GT500, if I'm in here messing around, opening things, closing things, dome light comes on, whatever, it will actually automatically switch over to charge, get your battery up to a certain state of charge, and then swap over to maintain, and it's totally automatic. The other thing to that is if the battery has completely failed, and it's kind of a dummy light, but it will give you a basic direction. When you connect the Autometer battery extender up to the battery, the charge light will actually start flashing, and it will give you an indication of the battery failure. So that way you at least have a direction, so you're not just kind of going in the blind wondering why it's not charging or whatever it may be. And so that is an easy solution to the Optima batteries going completely dead and no recovery. I know every battery is pretty much the same as far as recovery. Some of them have better luck than others. And for whatever reason, my luck with the Optima batteries, they do not like to recover whatsoever. So that has been my easy solution that I have been very successful with over the years, is the Autometer battery extender. Now to the controversy. There's plenty of people out there that like to beat up Optima batteries, and I understand everybody has a bad experience with certain things. And the reality of the internet is, a lot of times if somebody has a bad experience with something, they get online and bash it. And then when they have a great experience with something, they never talk about it. So that really is the reality of the internet from my perspective. So let's go ahead and just talk about what reality is from my personal point of view. And so let me just go ahead and state it again. I have no relations with any of these companies or any of these individuals at these companies. But in November of 2000, Johnson Controls purchased Optima batteries. And so with that acquisition, there was obviously some major changes made as far as the manufacturing goes of Optima batteries. Now, here's the reality of that. Johnson Controls is the largest manufacturer of automotive batteries on planet Earth. So there's a lot of things out there on the internet about premature failures and Johnson Controls purchasing Optima and all the bad experiences and so on. Well, here's my personal perspective of it. With Johnson Controls being the largest manufacturer of automotive batteries on planet Earth, let's just say that my favorite watch company, Omega, tomorrow decided to become the largest watch manufacturer on planet Earth. I'm fairly positive that that Omega reputation for accuracy and quality would probably take a hit if tomorrow they decided to become the world's largest watch manufacturer and started cranking them out. That's just the reality of large-scale manufacturing, and that's just the reality of the situation. Now let's move on to controversy number 2. On July 6th of 2007, Johnson Controls shut down all manufacturing of Optima batteries in the United States and moved all manufacturing south of the border to Monterrey, Mexico. And the claimed reason for that was to keep up with global demand. Now, for me personally, I'm not a fan of this move whatsoever. However, again, let's talk about what reality is. Finding anything manufactured in the United States anymore is getting more and more difficult every day. In fact, I'm the first one to point out on this channel every time that I pick something up that is not made in the United States. So do I like it? Absolutely not. Is it the reality of the situation to keep up with demand from their perspective? It is, unfortunately. Now, around that time from 2000 and 2008 is when a lot of perceived quality control issues began to occur, and there started being a lot of rumors floating around about the quality of Optima batteries, and supposedly there were issues with the lead, and the lead quality went down. I don't know about any of that. I don't know about any of that in the background. I can't imagine that quality control would have really changed that much within a corporate manufacturing company. I can't say that it did. I can't say that it didn't. All I can do is speak for my personal experience. And for me personally, I have never experienced any sort of decline in quality from Optima batteries. Again, every premature failure has 100% been on me, and I own it. And again, 100% ownership. I can say that every time that I took an Optima battery back to the auto parts store for a premature failure, the battery was still under warranty, so I was able to swap it out and keep going. So in my mind, I was 100% taken care of. Even though the failure was my fault, I was able to throw a new battery on and keep moving. So I'm very appreciative of that. So my quick example of my latest experience with the Optima RedTop batteries is this battery is actually dated September of 2013, and it was actually installed on the 2014 Shelby GT500 around September of 2013. It was probably late September, but it is stamped September of 2013. And today is January 25th of 2025. So by my math, that makes about 11 years and 4 months of this Optima RedTop battery doing a great job on the 2014 Shelby GT500. And that obviously falls well outside of that move to Monterrey, Mexico in 2007. So again, from my personal experience, nothing has changed as far as the quality goes. Now, at this very moment, I'm also using a RedTop Optima battery on the 2016 Ford F-150 coming up on 120,000 miles. It's been on this channel a lot, so I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with it. And that Optima RedTop on the F-150 is only the second battery that has ever been on that truck. So it had the original one from the factory and now an Optima RedTop, and it is still going strong. Now, the reason why I wanted to point that out is, again, I had to give credit where credit's due and just look at what reality is. This battery off of the 2014 Shelby GT500, it hasn't sit underneath the hot hood, underneath the baking Texas sun, doing tons of heat cycles. It hasn't been out in the absolute cold and tried to fire up a motor. It hasn't sat for weeks on end with the ECM drawing a small amount of power in the background and then tried to fire a motor up. It hasn't gone through any of those normal daily driver vehicle set outside sort of circumstances that can really take a toll on them. It hasn't experienced any of that. And when it's sitting in the shop, it always sits on one of the autometer battery extenders. So it always maintains a consistent charge and it's maintained. So like I said, giving credit where credit's due, I don't know if this battery would have lasted quite 11 years and 4 months, but I feel like I got my money's worth out of it. And so for me personally, it isn't just a dependability aspect with the Optima batteries. I have an absolute terrible track record with lead acid batteries and corrosion. I don't know what it is, but corrosion and lead acid batteries absolutely hate me. And so I don't want to add a bunch of sprays or goos or weird pads underneath the post. And so for me, Optima batteries have absolutely never had any sort of weird corrosion issues on posts or anything like that. So if you have something that sits like the GT500 does, or maybe you have an old Chevelle or an old fastback Mustang or an old Fox body, whatever it is, I really like the fact that the Optima batteries have absolutely no issues with corrosion. So for me, that is absolutely worth the extra 50 to 100 bucks that you may pay over a normal battery or even a different AGM battery for the Optimas to have absolutely zero corrosion issues, because on a classic car, you just don't want all that green, weird corrosion growing on your battery terminals and all that. So for me, that is one of my personal things about an Optima battery, is just zero concerns about any sort of corrosion issues. And so that's why I went ahead and purchased a brand new RedTop Optima battery after 11 years and 4 months. And this battery actually does still start the GT500. Everything fires up. I don't have any sort of weird warning indicators on the dash or anything like that regarding this. I did put a tester on it, and yes, you can test these with a basically normal modern tester. There's no weird issues with that. You don't need a $1,000 tester to test these batteries. But I have noticed that if I let the car sit, say move it over to the garage, let it sit over the weekend, move it back over to the shop, that it rolls over just a little bit slow. And so after almost 11 and a half years coming up on, I was starting to be a little bit concerned about dependability. So the last thing I want to do is be stranded out with the family at like a car meet or something like that. So I decided to go ahead and just pick up a new RedTop battery and get it mounted up on the GT500. So we're going right back with another RedTop battery. So again, I've had a pretty good experience with them. Now with that, let's talk about the pros and the cons of the Optima RedTop batteries and what reality really is. As I mentioned, I've had this Optima battery for over 11 years and I've had really good luck with longevity. So for me, one of the pros is the longevity of the Optima RedTop batteries. Number two is I've always had really good luck with the cranking amps of the Optima RedTop batteries. So I've always had good luck with the starting capability of the RedTop Optima batteries. So in my opinion, I think that's a pro. Number three is vibration resistant. So with the spiral cell design, and you can see that it's kind of made like a little 6-pack there, that everything is rolled up inside of these cases, almost like it's a giant D-cell battery. You can kind of think of it. So everything is encased in there with the lid rolled up with a fiberglass mat. Vibration resistant, I would say 100%. And actually on my old 1984 Chevy Blazer, I absolutely beat that thing to death. Had an Optima RedTop on it, never failed whatsoever. Again, on my work truck, no issues whatsoever. On the 2016 F-150, my son and I, we drive down dirt roads, county roads, off-road, basically just dirt trails on cattle ranches going hunting. And again, that is literally the second battery that's ever been on that truck. Still running strong with an Optima. So I do like the vibration resistant aspect of the Optima RedTops. And so number four for me, and really most important for anyone out there with any sort of classic or performance application that may see a lot of sitting and may sit on a maintainer a long time, is maintenance free. So again, it's maintenance free. You don't have to worry about corrosion. You don't have to spray anything. You don't have to put pads underneath anything. There's no worries about that. So for me, maintenance free is the most valuable aspect of the Optima batteries, and it's worth a little bit extra in my opinion. Now again, in the spirit of fairness and giving credit where credit's due, let's talk about the cons. So the number one downside to the Optima batteries is obviously the price point. So an Optima battery is definitely going to cost you more than a traditional lead acid battery. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to cost you more than even a traditionally designed AGM battery. So the price point is definitely a downside of the Optima battery. Now, the number two con is, from my perspective over the years, is that with the limited applications of the Optima batteries for different, especially heavy duty applications, the co-cranking amps may not be, enough as far as manufacturer's recommendations. In fact, I think on my old F350, the co-cranking amps wasn't quite the same as the recommended. And I went ahead and threw it on there and just kind of hoped for the best. And it absolutely worked out. So no complaints there. But what their rating is for the co-cranking amps may not be quite enough for like a heavy duty application or particular applications, especially when you start getting into kind of the performance and hot rod world with high torque starters and things like that. You need quite a bit of power to get those things rolling over. high compression especially, that comes into play. So with that, that is definitely a not all the time situation, but sometimes the cold cranking amps are a little bit low for certain applications. So most of the time you can kind of get by with it and cheat the system, but sometimes you just really can't. So in my experience, the cold cranking amps being just a little bit on the low side is kind of a negative with the Optima RedTops. And the number 3 con is exactly what we talked about. It is the premature failures for any sort of draw that gets these batteries all the way down to 0 charge. And so I know that's going to be with most batteries, but again, from my experience, there is absolutely no recovering the Optima batteries. So again, those experiences are 100% my fault. But if you have a situation to where maybe you have a switch or a relay or something like that that's stuck and it drags this thing all the way down, it is totally gone. So for me, that is a little bit of a con. It's definitely not the end of the world, but it is definitely something that you have to pay attention to. If you have an Optima battery, you don't want to just totally kill this thing. Now with that, I will say that most modern vehicles, and let's just use the 2016 Ford F-150, is once the battery gets all the way down to a certain charge and the vehicle knows that it's been sitting for a while, it will actually go into what it refers to, like on my truck, it is a battery saver mode. And so it stops drawing anywhere near as much power, and it just kind of goes into like this shut everything down mode until you put the key in and turn the ignition. And so that is a huge savior for these batteries at this point versus way back when ECMs didn't do anything like that. They were almost just like really smart carburetors, basically. So that is a huge plus and a win for the Optima batteries to kind of keep doing their thing. But with that, if you're going to let it sit any length of time, just seriously get a maintainer, even if it's one of the little super cheapy ones at your local auto parts store or big box store. I'm sure something like that will work just fine. I just prefer the auto meters because it does have the charge function, so I can throw it on, it's automatic. But that's just my personal perspective, so I wanted to include that with this video in case somebody was interested. It may help you out. So the conclusion to this regarding the Optima RedTop batteries is really this comes down to 2 primary factors: budget and application. So it's one of those situations where if you're on a budget, definitely avoid the Optima stuff. It is not a necessary thing, and to be honest, a lot of the big box stores out there have absolutely fantastic batteries now. They have come a very long way, and honestly, there is a lot of different options out there now compared to what there used to be between lead acids, AGMs, and gels. So go ahead and just stick with a more budget-friendly option. Now again, this is my personal perspective just from my experience, but if you're willing to spend a little bit extra money and you want something that's pretty dang dependable and you don't have to worry about any maintenance or any weird corrosion on your battery post or your terminals or anything like that, I would go ahead and opt for the extra money and just get the Optima RedTop. So if you have something like a classic or an off-road vehicle or something that sits like the GT500, and again, maybe it's no Camaro or Chevelle or Chevy 2, something like that, you really can't go wrong with the Optima RedTops as long as you kind of pay attention to it. Make sure you put on some sort of a maintainer and just pay attention to what's going on with it. And so like I said, this really just comes down to budget and application and really personal perspective. Now that about covers all the information that I have for the Optima RedTop batteries. So listen, I really do hope you got some good information out of this video, or I hope you just enjoyed hanging out in the shop with us. You know the deal. If you haven't already, go and hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. As always, jump in for another ride.